If you have questions, concerns, and are just lost when it comes to planning for retirement, meet Steve Hoyl and Derek Caldwell of the Hoyl Financial Group. Steve, Derek, welcome. You are looking handsome as ever. You guys got like sort of matching blue blazers on here.
We do. Yeah, it's kind of funny. You know, I traveled across Texas this week, Jess, and when I got there last night, I realized, wait a minute, I don't have a shirt to wear. So at 10:30, I was at Walmart and got this really great. Listen, guys, for $19.99, you can get the greatest shirt at Walmart.
Yeah, I'm proud of you, Steve, man. That's a win right there. And white always looks sharp with like a red or blue jacket there. So I'm not big on fashion or anything like that, but that's the extent of what I know. And I learned it all from Steve, so it works out great.
Guys, I know you've been busy in the office, but lots of calls coming in saying, I'm finally ready to get serious. Steve, what are people calling and asking about?
I think the big one right now people say is we're hearing about the largest correction in the history of my lifetime. And when is that going to happen? And how is it going to affect me? Which I think is a really big question. Do you want to work an extra 5 years in retirement? Right, Derek?
Yeah. And you know what? We're hearing a lot of that, with Steve, where it's like they want to hold on, and they don't want to diversify or anything right now. We're hearing a lot of that, right? And you can't wait until there's a correction to make a change, right? If you're uneasy about how you're diversified inside your portfolio, you need to be talking to somebody now. You need to call us and sit down with us because that uneasiness doesn't go away the more money you make, right? It gets worse and worse.
Well, it turns out that the rich may sort of be like us. Let me just follow me on this here because Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, he recently made headlines when the billionaire moved from Washington state to Florida. You ask yourself why? The answer, taxes. First, Washington has a 7% capital gains tax while Florida has none. So when Bezos sells, 50 million Amazon shares over the next year, as he probably will as a Florida resident, he'll be saving $610 million.
Wow.
Insane, that kind of money. And, of course, wealth lawyer Matt Sorensen, he says there's more.
Washington has an estate tax of 20% once you have a $2 million or larger estate. Bezos has a much larger estate than $2 million, okay? So he's going to have a 20% estate tax when he dies. Bezos is planning his death to be in Florida, where there will be zero estate tax at the state level.
So here's the deal. We don't have money like Bezos, obviously, but a lot of us maybe have that concern of taxes, so we want to pick up and move to take advantage of these benefits. What does that mean when you just pick up and move for tax purposes, guys?
That's definitely a big move there, but as you can see from his move there, it's netted him quite a bit of tax savings, and we see people do that. Texas, Florida, no state taxes goes a long way when you're planning your retirement, but there's still property taxes and everything else to plan for. It's really the first step is to know how much you will be paying in taxes. And the biggest thing that we see a lot of times that people forget is if you pass away, what's your spouse looking like, when it comes to paying taxes, or more importantly, too, your children when it comes to leaving your legacy, because it doesn't matter to me if I'm here or dead. I do not want the state or federal government to get any more of my money than I have to give them anyway. And so proper planning goes a long way to put that in place, whether it's Roth conversions or just becoming more tax efficient. And, whether that's with withdrawals, how you take withdrawals, when you take them, all that stuff we look at because, I don't want to give away any of my money. I don't know about you, Steve. What do you think, man? You want to give away money?
Of course not, Derek. I don't want to throw money away, but we have to be very efficient and, plan well. I mean, it's important. That's a great thing about not having a state tax at this point in Texas. But property taxes are crazy here. So there's a little bit of give and take. You have to think about, Derek.
Oh, absolutely. With property taxes continuing to go up, especially for the people under 65 years old, right?
Right.
We have to match that with our income and continue to make sure that we produce as much income as we can in portfolios to deal with that kind of inflationary environment.
I would agree with that. And you talked about, this inflation environment. Guys, I go to the grocery store, I think 2 or 3 times a week. It's exhausting. And the amount of money that I think I'm pouring into just normal groceries, nothing fancy. I mean, I'm nowhere close to retiring, obviously, but I feel like just now trying to tread water and stay above water, and I'm getting a paycheck every 2 weeks. I think I'm never going to get to that finish line. I think a lot of our listeners feel like that. Oh gosh, if taxes are going up, we got the Trump tax codes possibly ending. We got inflation all over the place. We got a market that's supposed to have the biggest market crash. I mean, things are kind of painted doom and gloom. So how do we get to a point to where with something as simple as taxes, we can keep more money in our pocket?
Well, Jess, it's just simple. It's about having a plan, then working that plan and making sure with that plan that you've mitigated the risk.
Unfortunately, sometimes that's what we get thrown, right, as planners there. And so when we do that, I strongly recommend you not do that and plan ahead because there are, traditionally the market's been where you keep up with inflation and everything, but you can't have all your eggs in one basket, right? And when we talk about inflation, Jess, if you have $3,000 a month in expenses now, rest assured in 15 years or between 15 and 20 years, that $3,000 is going to be $6,000 a month. So, and that's just normal, regular inflationary environment. So we have to make sure that we have the ability to produce income, number one, but also have proper diversification inside our portfolios to keep up with inflation. Because that's going to be something that, like you said, the grocery store, I don't know about y'all, but I mean, I use $100 used to get you a whole cart of groceries, right?
Not anymore.
Yeah, that's like 2 armfuls and that's it.
Barely,
So,
yeah.
Yeah, and when you talk about Social Security, really the Social Security increases are eaten up by the Medicare increases. So you're really not netting a lot of income from Social Security increases. So then you got to look at, okay, where else am I getting income from? Where are my dedicated income streams? And also, how do I make sure I have the income not only right now, but 20 years from now? So if you want a proper income analysis to go through those steps with you, we look at break-even points for Social Security. When's the best time to take Social Security? What's the next bucket of income, and when do you take it?
Financial author and speaker Susie Orman, she is constantly warning people about retirement. Her latest is, if you think you're ready to retire, think again. She says for most Americans, their savings will only last about 3 years. And she also adds, the greatest threat to your comfort in retirement, it's not the stock market, it's not how much you've saved or even some crazy spending. It's all about not having a plan. So, Derek and Steve, I'm sure you've met with people that they've been good savers, they think they've got it all figured out, but at the end, they don't have a plan.
That's exactly right, Jess. Did you plan to fail or fail to plan? I mean, we see it all the time. Then we also see do-it-yourselfers that come in that say, wait a minute, I can't even afford to get my air conditioner fixed because I have no cash, because they tied up all their money. They don't have a plan. They don't have a well thought out plan. And I think it all starts with planning. I mean, it's that added peace of mind you get when you have a written plan, not just a plan that's up here, Jess, but one that's written down. If this happens, I'm going to do this. A few years ago, we had a couple that he was a month from retiring at Pantex. They had gone out and bought a huge RV. Their house was paid for. They had one kid. Everything was set up for them. And he was riding a motorcycle, and he was driving down the street and hit a car head on and died on the scene.
Oh, my gosh.
Jeez. And, we're still working with her, but he had saved lots of money. The plan kind of took a lot of twists and turns to it, but they had a plan. And you know what? She's fine today. She's had some hard times, some adjustments. It's interesting, Jess, when you think about a couple that opposites attract, he was the one that kind of controlled the purse strings. So when you have somebody not doing that, they're out buying fur coats or doing crazy things. And so we see that a lot, but she's had to make adjustments along the way, but they had planned so well. She's great today. So, I just think things happen. And when you have that plan, you can make it. Derek, didn't you agree?
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's one of the greatest things you could do for somebody in that kind of horrific situation is say, hey, remember, we've already talked through this. Right. We've already ran analysis and we've done everything. We've put your portfolio together. In this case, she lost her husband. You're going to be okay. And that's something where that's super powerful, especially if you're in that situation and you're having to deal with funerals and everything like that. And what's the biggest thing? Everybody's fear is running out of money. Plain and simple, right? And so without a clear goal and focus, what people do a lot of times is that they just start shoving away money. They don't know how much they need or what their income is going to be in retirement, what their expenses are. And Steve, we talk about a lot of time about, stress tests in people's portfolios. If you're concerned about a 2008 happening again, which let's be clear here, it will happen sometime in the next 30 years, guys. The market
or 30 days, we don't know which.
Yeah. I mean, the market will have corrections and there will be recessions and things along the way, but there'll also be bull markets, things like that. But call me. Let's stress test your portfolio. If you want to see what your portfolio would do in a 2008 situation, we can do that for you. That's one of the things about making sure that your portfolio and your plan is sound. Steve, that I remember that lady coming in, and it's part of our solution for them were annuities. And what they say at the start, like, oh no, my dad had an annuity, and he didn't like it, everything. But what they were describing, they wanted additional safety, they wanted higher growth potential, and they wanted an income plan that they could rely on. And I remember, Steve, because you're like, well, that's an annuity, ma'am.
But Derek, people want all the attributes of an annuity, but they don't want an annuity. It's so crazy. And what people don't understand is 80% of the pensions out there are their company buying an annuity for them. I mean, that's what it is. So I mean, we can package it however we want to, but it's an annuity. And it's interesting, but this isn't your father or your grandfather's annuity, what we have today. We have caps where you can make up to 15% a year with no downside risk. Sign me up. It's just incredible how the landscape has changed out there. And I think when you couple a plan with a great strategy and then you have level-headed money usage, I think that's what really comes together and makes it successful. So many people want to talk about a plan. They don't want to be realistic. People come in and say, I haven't saved anything. They'll call our radio show and I want to talk about a plan. Well, I'm going to save 20% of what I make the next 5 years, but you haven't saved anything the past 5 years. It's not going to happen in a real world.
And Steve, you're exactly right. Putting a plan together is all about also being proactive, right? I mean, take it to any analogy you want. Tiger Woods didn't become Tiger Woods overnight, right? It took years and years and years of building that. Same thing with your retirement. It takes a while to kind of put a plan in motion and let the income build and different tools and strategies that are going to help build that plan that's going to sustain you for the rest of your life. The number one fear is, of course, running out of money. And then, of course, when you transition in retirement, the next question is, well, wait a minute, how do I replace that paycheck that I've been used to getting every 2 weeks? Is there a way to create a paycheck in retirement? And correct me if I'm wrong, Derek and Steve, but an annuity could be a possible way to replace that paycheck.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what actually Steve's been saying that for 30 years. You've been talking about that. So,
but Derek, it's interesting is we have income strategies that the day you retire, if you get paid every 2 weeks or every month, we can make the EFT come the next 2 weeks and come every 2 weeks for the rest of your life and the rest of your spouse's life. And what I find for people is they work so long, they punch the clock so long, they become very habit driven. So we need to duplicate that. It needs to be comfortable. It needs to be intuitive. That's in that plan. It needs to be realistic most of all. Derek, I think the other reason why a lot of people don't retire is they don't have an emergency fund. They have a lot of money in savings, but they don't know how they're going to access it. When we help them figure that out, there's so many neat little ways we figured out. People will come to see us work in the oil field. They'll have $3.5 million, and they live just paycheck to paycheck every month. They make their charger payment, they make their big pickup payment, and they have zero cash. And when we help them create that emergency fund, and it's so easy to do, it's that added peace of mind. We talk about stress testing your portfolio, but one of the things we do a lot, Jess, is we stress test your marriage. What I find is it's true, when we figure out, let's just pay off that pickup, let's pay off that charger, and then you become your own bank kind of, where each time you get paid or you're getting income in retirement, save some of that money so when you need a new car, you do it that way. And then when you have that money in savings, I see great marriages. People are a lot happier. And I laugh about this all the time and I get tired of hearing it, but people come in to see us and they sit on opposite sides of the conference table. And as we start getting the big elephant out of the room called money figured out, they leave, they walk out together, they hold hands. My favorite thing that happens through that process is we so often see couples walk outside, maybe they're in different cars, and they stand out at their car and they talk a while, because they're able to get that huge thing because, money's such a problem between people. So the psychology of money is everything in retirement. So it's like Derek talks about. Susie Orman says, have a plan. Let's figure out what kind of plan. Let's use an annuity or something else to have the income plan. Let's figure out the savings. Let's figure out your emergency money. We can make it happen. You can retire, and you can retire well. That's what it's about. We've been doing it for 35 years. Let us do it for you. It's so important. Go to retiretexasstyle.com. People call in and say, what does retire Texas style mean? Well, what does it mean to you? To me, it means retire better, retire happier, retire with confidence. Everything in Texas we do bigger and better. We're going to do that for you. Absolutely.
If you'd like to sit down with Steve and Derek or a member of the Hoyl Financial Group, visit retiretexasstyle.com.
Investment advice offered through Hoyl Wealth Management, a Texas registered investment advisor able to provide investment advice in states where it's registered, exempt, or excluded from registration. Content contained herein should not be construed as an offer or solicitation for investment advice or for the purchase or sale of any security, insurance, or other investment product. Investments involve the risk of loss, including possible loss of principal. Please consult with a qualified financial, tax, accounting, or legal professional before implementing any ideas or strategies discussed here. Content provided is obtained from sources believed to be reliable but cannot be guaranteed as to its accuracy or completeness. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance products, including annuities offered through Steve Hoyl, Texas Insurance License 716036. Annuity guarantees rely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company. Read your contract for restrictions, limitations, or penalties. Steve Hoyl is not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if Steve Hoyl is licensed in your state, please call 806-371-9473.